This is the Ace Founder Podcast.
Right. So welcome to the show, David. It's an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to share time with you today.
Excited to have you on because this month is kind of like our cybersecurity month on the show. And I've been interviewing a bunch of cybersecurity experts, and it's a pleasure. I've been enjoying these convos so much. I didn't realize how much of a threat there is out there. And, especially in this day of AI and all this going on. So it's awesome to have another seasoned expert like yourself on the show. And we're going to be diving into some really pretty interesting aspects of cybersecurity and how startups can protect themselves. But before we do, I always like to allow my guests to introduce themselves. You're going to do a way better job at it than me. So could you tell us a little bit more about you and the work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, appreciate the opportunity to share time with you and talk about my journey and Protego and what we're trying to do, and I'll get in really deep details on some of those things, and also talk about the threat landscape that we're experiencing and where it's headed. It's a very scary, crazy world, but there's ways that we can address this. So first, let me tell you a little about this guy. So I've been in the IT space and cyberspace for over 35 years. My journey actually starts out straight out of high school. I went straight into the Air Force, and no college time for me. It just wasn't my thing. It was like, but you have to keep in mind the time frame. This is in 1990, 1991. We had Desert Storm and all these things, and there's a lot of stuff that was just going on. So there was a lot of that influence. I also come from a military family. My father was in the Air Force. My father was one of 7 children, 4 other boys with 2 sisters. All the boys were in the military service. So I have lineage in that space. We had every military for the United States covered, with the exception of the Coast Guard. And there's a side joke to that, and we'll share that for a different time. So I came from that kind of raising, that kind of growing up in that kind of space where discipline was very, very, very ingrained, right? So it just made sense. So I went into the military, and I was very fortunate. When I went in, it was just as IT was really kind of starting. I always make the joke that I got into IT before it was IT. Right? It was back in the days where a lot of what we did in IT was still coding, was still sitting on working mainframes with the dumb terminals out there, and that's the space that I got introduced into. So when I went into the Air Force, I truly started at the most basic level. I started at doing cabling, right? That was my first big project that I had to do. And it was back in the days when we had coax cables and we had vampire clamps. And that's how we got our networks all installed and all those things. So I got to be part of that generation that is, how does technology evolve and really get into business? So 8 years of active duty Air Force. I had some amazing assignments there. I was based out of Luke Air Force Base, which is in Phoenix, Arizona, or Glendale, Arizona. And then I got to spend 3 years in Misawa, Japan. Yeah, I lived in Japan for 3 years. That was an amazing experience, just amazing experience. And I was at that point where in the military for the U.S., you do them in blocks of 4 years or 2 years of those things. And after doing 8 years, if I re-enlist, I'm going to have to retire because 20 years is like, I'm just not going to do that. And the timing was in 1999. And what was the big thing that was going on during 1999 leading into 2000?
It's the Y2K.
Y2K.
Yeah.
You got it. You got it. And so I saw an opportunity to say, this is a great way to segue out to the civilian market because I have these skills that are in absolute demand. Right. So left the military, came back to Arizona from Japan, and just kind of made this my home forever. And once I came back, I went to work for a manufacturing company that specified they really focus on high precision GPS. Now keep in mind the time frame. This is early 2000s, so GPS wasn't like it is today, right? So it was really high precision GPS, and what they would do is they'd use these GPS connectors, and they went into the agriculture market. and
Mm.
they put a receiver in the tractor and a receiver in whatever the element is, and everything was automated. You could have a
Mm.
human being in there because it hooks into the hydraulic systems and it could drive it. But this was the automated driving before automated driving was
That's
really there.
crazy.
Right? It's super
Yeah.
cool. It's fun projects
Yeah.
to get to work on. But so I worked with that company off and on for 13 years, and started out as a network engineer. And when I left there, I was running the global IT infrastructure.
Mm.
And after that, I went to another manufacturing organization. It's more specifically for semiconductors. And this was amazing. This was probably the biggest growth period for me professionally. That I had the opportunity to come in and rebuild
Mm.
everything from when I first came in. I got the IT operations for the U.S. dialed in, then rebuilt the global network, rebuilt the servers, the data centers, all those. We redid all the IT operations, split out part of it to a third party service, kept some of it in house. So during that 8 years, I got to do every single element of what IT operations and IT is. Not to mention, I also headed up the security. So
Mm.
I was part of that early generation of how do you develop a SIM? How do you develop a SOC?
Mm.
And when I say those, the security operations center and the SIM is how you aggregate all your logs and all that kind of stuff. There was companies that were starting to spawn up to do this stuff, but we were doing it internally. So it was just an amazing, amazing opportunity and a learning opportunity for sure. And ASM, the company I was working for, it was an amazing organization. They really focused on the human being, and they had great mentor programs. They had great leadership programs, um, all of that. So during that period of time was really I found my groove in the professional world. Uh, outside, then here comes 2020, and I make the joke that if I didn't have bad timing, I'd had no timing. So after I did all this work with ASM, I was like, you know what could really help me be
Mm.
better? I said, well, as I was doing all these projects on a global scale, I was sitting across the table from these engineers, these salespeople, and and I always felt like I was like, you guys, you don't understand the business aspect of this. They're here to sell a product. Don't get me wrong; they're doing their job. They're doing their job, but they're just missing that element. I thought I could do that. Let's add that to my repertoire, right? Let's get on the other side of the IT from the sales side of it, and let's see what you can learn there, Dave. Yeah, that was an interesting learning experience for two reasons. Number one, I leave ASM on Friday. I start at the new company IT1 on Monday. That Wednesday, the world fell off the axis. Everybody go home. You got to get the shots. You got to, just everything went crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a very human. I need the human
Even
interaction. That's
edge.
just
Yeah.
how I operate. That's my value add. I had to learn not only how to do a new business model, how to operate in that space, but how to do it sitting at
At home.
home, you know, and everybody else is sitting at home, and we're trying to solve problems like how do we get somebody a laptop? You know what I mean? Just basic things. It was crazy. And from 2020 to now, essentially, I kind of went in and out of a couple of opportunities. I helped a recruiting organization build a services arm, and the idea was that they wanted to just give more value to their clients as opposed to just giving them staff.
Mm.
We had great projects and just couldn't get enough to keep the plane in the air. It just
Mm.
wasn't quite enough. And then and then that led me to going to work for my last assignment before I started Protego, which was GPA Global, and that was a very interesting assignment. That was actually a pretty tough assignment for me. Not because of any major reasons. It was just hard to position security in the right framing for the leadership to really grab onto it and say, okay, yes, we want to be secure. They had the same mindset as most other organizations as IT and security is a cost center. It's what you cut back
Mm.
on when things get
Mm.
tough, right? You only invest in when things are good.
Mm,
That's a challenge, right? And that's where Protego was born,
mm,
right? So as I was sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, how can I truly help this company? How can I? Because I got to change. I got to find a way to be more effective in my communication, more business vision versus just all technology and adding more and more and more. And as I sat down and started structuring, well, how do I do this? The idea started to come out to say, well, could be an actual company. This could be something. Maybe I'm focusing on trying to help one organization. Why don't I think bigger?
mm,
Maybe I can help more organizations, right? So that's how Protego was born. So when I talk about Protego, let's talk about the name for a second because it's
mhm.
very important to me. This was something I got a funny story about how it came about,
Yeah.
but Protego. So Protego is rooted in Latin
Mm,
and it means protector.
mm,
That's how we show up, right? So what is Protego? So I created Protego to provide the chief information security officer, the strategic thinker, the C-suite role. I created Protego to bring seasoned CISOs to small to medium businesses on a fractional basis so they can get a highly skilled, highly accomplished CISO that's worked in major organizations, Coca-Cola, Heineken, big name organizations. These people have been there, done that.
mm,
I'm bringing them to the small to medium businesses on a fractional
mm,
basis. So we can sit alongside those CEOs, those CFOs, and truly design what does security look like and how does it need to look like,
mm.
not only for today, but how are you going to survive tomorrow? You
Yeah.
mentioned AI, right?
Mm.
You think we're living in a digital age right now? We're scratching the surface.
Crazy.
AI is going to, it's amplifying it, man. It's
Yeah.
amplifying what the human can do.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's not a whole lot of controls out there. So that means the bounds are quite wide. And it, the security is just going to get even harder to do.
Mm,
So that's that's been my journey. I've been, like I said, very very fortunate. I've been able to live in other countries. I got to experience other cultures. It really helped me grow as a human being. Understand, perspectives are important. Context is important. All those types of things. Um, yeah, that's the quick the
Version.
35-year highlight reel for Dave for in 5 minutes time, 8 minutes time. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's a very you've got a very comprehensive, very rich background in this. I
Yeah.
mean, I love the you coming from a military background. That is very relevant. And then going through all the changes over the years. And as you were speaking, I was just thinking. I was doing CompTIA. Obviously, CompTIA. And I was
Mhm.
thinking, man, this guy is going to scale CompTIA. I was struggling with this, but I'm sure you will have no problem passing passing that thing because you've witnessed the whole change and they keep changing it every 3 years,
Mhm.
so I'm sure very very interesting. But there's something you said that I'm finding is a common theme. I would have thought securing your business or securing your business is a should be a priority for most businesses, but it's it's looking like you said, it's looking like it's one of those things that is an afterthought for a lot of businesses. Is that something you're finding very common?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's not for any other reason than what we've been told to do,
Mm,
right? Not only from when you go to school, you get your business degree, they compartmentalize security into IT. That's how it's
mm.
trained, even at the most basic
I
onset
see.
of education.
I see.
And so that's where I think a lot of it starts. But as a new founder and CEO, my perspective is adjusting, and I'm starting to really understand why.
Mm,
The reason why is that as a business owner, as a business leader, you have so many things that you're responsible
mm,
for, right? And some things you just need that easy button. You
mm,
just need it. And security is one of those. It's so complex. It's so heavy. It needs an easy button. It needs something that a CEO, a CFO, that executive body can say, okay, put that in IT and that's how we'll handle it. The market itself, I don't want to throw all the big technology companies under the bus, but toot toot, here comes the bus. They create this
Yeah.
situation. That's why they're
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar industries, because they create that as, if you want to be secure, buy my product. If you don't buy my product, well, then good luck to you. Right? It's but that's how it is. And what I'm seeing with AI and with how that's bringing it forward, businesses are starting to finally like wake up, like, oh, wait a minute,
Mm,
maybe there's a better way to handle this.
mm,
And the answer is yes, there is. Right? Technology is absolutely part of your cybersecurity posture. It absolutely has to be, but it's not the only thing. You have people and you have your process
mm,
that lead to your technology. And for so long, we've over indexed on the technology aspect of it. They will
mm.
solve all of our process and people problems. Here we are, 3 decades later, at least in this guy's experience, and we're still fighting the same problems that we did back in 1991, 1992. Passwords, for example. How are we still using passwords? It just,
Yeah.
those types of things. So the idea that it's an easy button is no longer a viable solution. It
Mm,
needs to be more integrated into the mindset of the business. It's just as important as your marketing, your sales. If you're a manufacturing shop, your operations. It's just as important as that. It needs its own seat,
mm,
and it needs to be integrated into the way that the business operates. That's culture, right? That's a cultural thing. That's a human being thing. The other thing that I talk about as well is, I do panels and those types of things as well. And I talk about this topic as well, is that we're so over indexed on the technology aspect of how we're going to defend our businesses that we created our own situation that that technology is exactly what's being used against us.
mm.
How do you combat technology if you're just throwing more technology at it?
That's it.
It's
Yeah.
all created by humans. It's all driven by timelines, time to market, value propositions. All those things are driven by how do they get that software product out there, not
Mm,
necessarily is it ready, because most of the time it's
mm,
not. They say let's get it ready enough and then let's patch it. Right? That's the
mm,
mentality. So if we over-index as businesses on the technology that's already created by humans, on timelines, and we'll patch it later, what do you expect the result to be? That's where we got to get back to the human. And there's a lot of technology that's focusing on human, which is amazing, great place. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is truly bringing in a security mindset, just like a construction company, for example, safety first, right? They can't have people falling off ladders and breaking stuff. They're not going to have a whole lot of jobs to do, right? But that doesn't mean that they're only a safety company. It means they're a construction company that they lead with the mindset of being safe first. That same mentality can be done in the business environment.
mm.
Security first. How are we doing this? Are we doing it securely? Are we doing it for the right reasons? Do we keep the right people out of the room and let the right people in the room, and those types of things? That's how security needs to be treated, but it's got to be treated as a cultural thing. It
Mm,
must be integrated. It cannot be layered on top.
mm. I like that. I really like that. And when you say cultural, you're talking about how the people in the company operate, like maybe not taking password outside or stuff like that, basically.
Exactly. And it goes beyond that too, right? So it's
Okay.
when we're talking about the security mindset,
Mm,
it's as you sit at your keyboard and your mouse and you get that email,
mm.
you're like, you get that little thing going, that's just doesn't look right for
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
reason, right? Whatever reason, something triggered. Your gut
Yeah.
said, pause for a second. Let's look at this again.
Mm.
Actually knowing the right thing to do and doing the right thing is what
Uh,
is key, right? Because people are like, but I got to hurry and get this done. This
yeah.
seems about right. Let me just go ahead and do it. And then
Yeah.
I'll deal with the fallout if it's wrong.
Yeah.
That security mindset is like, no, this isn't following the protocol. No, this does not meet all the criteria. I'm going to press pause for a second and we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at this for what it is, right? The reality is, in most organizations, most security professionals like myself, the one thing that makes us so fearful, I guess, of the next breach is going to happen, and eventually it's going to happen to every company, big or small, is you're one click away, a 50-50 chance. Do they click the link? Do they not click the link? Then you got a 50-50 chance. Do they put their credentials in or not? That's a coin toss. I'll tell you what, man, I'm really bad at coin tosses. I lose them all the time. I don't even want to be in that game, right? So when we're talking about that culture, we're talking about education at a level that goes way beyond the annual cyber awareness training, way beyond maybe quarterly, because some businesses are doing it quarterly. Great, that's better, but you're still not actually getting to the culture, right? You're not getting to that culture. And that starts two places. One, culture is defined by the leadership. But how well culture is executed depends on the person in the mirror. You, me. We're part of that culture build. And you can have all the mandates and all the policies you want, but if you and I, as we look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to hold the line because that's what I'm here to do, that's culture.
Very, very interesting. And it's got me thinking because, for a smaller company, say less than 50 employees, it might be easier to, create that culture of security. But say for a massive company, 100,000 employees, how do you how do you manage such that, especially if they're doing something separately and then trying to get them create that security culture in that organization? How do you pull that off, basically?
That's a great question, and this is what Protego helps to solve. So thank you for that segue, right? So what does Protego try to solve is, number one, we work at that senior level, right? And what we do is we tie business to security. So there's two things, and only two things, that really truly matter to a business and more to the CEO: making money and protecting that money. First off, if you're not making money, you're a hobby. You're not going to last very long, right? So you got to have those ways of making money. Number two is protecting that money. The only way you can grow is investing back into your company. And if you're not putting things in place to protect that stream, you can't grow, right? So one of the things that has really hurt, or I don't know if I want to go hurt, one of the things that is evolving, it's probably a better way to say it, is that the CISO naturally has been a technology first person. But what we're seeing now is that evolution of the CISOs are now elevating more to a business mindset, but still have the technical prowess, right? They understand where things go. So when we come in and we sit down with the CEOs, the CFOs for some of these bigger organizations, we talk about this. And I got to tell you, it's one of the things, it's from sitting across the table from a CEO, you have to be very careful not to call their baby ugly, right? I mean, they've done amazing things. They've got this company, they got employees, they got families that are depending on this. They've done amazing things. You got to be very careful not to call their baby ugly. But you need to share with them that there's a new and better way, not only to survive today, but to survive for tomorrow. And so what we do is we line out, how do you integrate security into your organization? And we go, instead of the perspective of technology, adjust your processes, and then train your people how to do this, we flip that on its head. And we said, we're going to start with people. We're going to go through the process, and then we're going to go to the technology and make sure the technology is doing exactly what these two pieces need to define. So when we sit down with an organization, we look at the overall organization, as far left and as far right and as far as up, far down as we can go, because security proliferates across the entire organization. It impacts the janitor all the way to the CEO. And so what we do is we sit down and we map that out and say, okay, well, how do you do that? Starting with the human being, starting with the education, starting with the mindset. Then it evolves to the processes and then to the technology. That type of engagement is what I call the offensive mode. The offensive mode is preparing businesses for the digital age where we're headed, where the AI is going to be in control. The humans will be constantly trying to control it.
Hmm.
That's where we're headed, right? And you hear a lot of conversations, people talk about the governance and all that. Absolutely, it needs to be there, but it's lagging behind. Right? So that's that's the value add. That's how we show up. We sit down and we do this from a business perspective, not a technology perspective.
Hmm.
That's the big difference, and that's where I'm seeing success. When we start talking culture, sometimes it feels like a therapy session. you know, but we're talking about human beings. We're not talking about technology. We're talking about human beings. So it gets a little soft. So some of the CEOs at first are a little. Can we just stick to the technology? No, you can. Absolutely. And there's other companies that will come in there and they'll sell
And
you
do
as much
this.
technology as you can afford. They'll sell you technology you can't afford, right? Or you could solve the problem.
Mm. I get what you mean, and it makes sense because of now I get why you say they're looking for like a simple, just sell me software that can protect my business, so I don't have to. I see. Very interesting. So when you work with companies, then do you when you're mapping out, like you said, this, do you actually spend a couple days with them, or do
Oh
you
yeah.
monitor their processes though? How does that work?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's we do the interview process, right? So that's
Okay.
pretty intense. We have our structure that we developed that we just walk the executive community through that process.
Okay.
And at the end of that process of all the interviews, then we have a roadmap. We create our roadmap and say,
Mm,
okay, well, here's the areas that we're going to start focusing
wow.
on. Here's priority one, priority two. Here's where you need to invest money. Here's where you need to invest time. You know, just just those types of things that takes it through that process. And then at the end of that interview process, which is actually the most labor intensive, that usually takes a week or two to have enough conversations to get enough of the information, and we're trying to speed that up as well. But it takes a several conversations, probably leave it that way,
Okay.
that then becomes the prescription for that organization.
Ah,
I'm not going to take that prescription and say, okay, I'm going to give it to this
this is-
company and then this company.
yeah.
The template is the same, but what is produced is specific, and that belongs to that company. The idea is that we can help you get there,
Mm,
right? And we can help you get there in the way that you can do it. Maybe it's
mm,
in small bursts. Maybe it's big projects and big chunks. We can go to the cadence of what the business can accommodate,
mm,
because this is disruptive. This is disruptive to the business, but we try to minimize that
mm,
disruption. We
mm,
try to incentivize that disruption. And when I talk about the incentives to this is being a more secure company, so that this whole AI thing that everybody is hopping on and leveraging, and this guy's leveraging it just as much as everybody else, you need to get ahead of it. Is if you don't, it will run you over.
very, very interesting. I can see how your approach is better because as you're talking, I was thinking with so many threats out there, like if you were just gonna buy software, you buy for this one. Are you gonna buy one software to cover? It wouldn't it be better to like prepare your team to handle or to prevent that stuff from happening? So I can see why that's a much better approach. I'm very interested though. When you work with companies, do you when as in what do they need you before they call you in, or have they been hacked and then they call you in, or is this like a preventive measure for them?
It depends.
Oh,
So
okay.
what I described earlier was the offensive mode, and we have what we
Okay.
call our defensive mode.
Okay.
Um, the defensive mode is your typical audit type tracks. Of
uh,
course, we approach these different, but if a company needs to adhere to some compliance,
okay.
some framework, all those types of things, we can come in and help align the business to that. But again, we do it from people to technology. And that's what makes us different from most of the other advisors that are out there. And the the defensive opportunities turn into offensive opportunities. So we help somebody, for example, maybe if I say PCI, PCI is a compliance that's required. If you're going to do transactions online with credit cards and that type of stuff, you must have this accreditation. We'll take them through the entire process. Say, check all the boxes, you're doing this all right, but we put in a system that is going to make sure that it's not going to just be a checkbox and a rubber stamp.
I see.
Right? But most of those opportunities are coming to me either through an incident. Somebody may have had an incident and they recovered, and they're like, okay, we want to make sure that we're doing okay because we're about to lose a customer, or we're going to lose maybe some vendors. We're part of some third party chain, supply chain. So there has been an event that says, wake up, we're going to have to do something about this, and we're going to do this differently. The other way that a lot of the opportunities come at me is just the grip for me, leveraging my network, right? Having conversations, speaking on panels, doing podcasts, these types of things is how they're coming at me. And everybody so far is open to it. They're receptive to, okay, we're open to another way. Let's give this, let's make this work. I don't think for some of the organizations, I think if they didn't recognize they need help, they're not going to be calling me yet. They may be just sticking to, whatever the IT side says that we need to buy this new firewall, this new scanner, and that easy button works for them until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't, indeed, especially in the day and age of AI. Speaking, I want to talk a little bit about AI, though. Like, what are your thoughts around it? Like, how do you see this impacting businesses, like especially in the cybersecurity?
Yeah, area? Absolutely. So, AI. So, I'm gonna give you the geek answer first. AI has been around for decades, my man. We've been doing machine learning for a very long time. We've been doing scripting for a very, very long time. So the AI to me is like, oh, okay, cool. Now people can do scripts like I used to be able to do scripts. You know what I mean? The difference is that it's made it in a way that you don't have to be technically savvy to understand how to use it. There is ways that you can go about using AI and use it safely and securely, and there's ways you can use it to not do it that way. The fact that it's now in the hands of more people that can make that decision if they're going to do good or bad for it makes this very complex, right? I think that AI is amazing. I do, when it's used correctly. When AI is used to amplify what the human can execute to, that's a win. AI that is replacing human beings, that's not necessarily a win in my book. It could be a win if it's something, now let's take it to like the security space, logs and events, and there's so much noise that the human being just can't consume and keep on top of it. That we seriously have called, we have a name for it it's called log fatigue. It's a real thing. It burns people up. And so doing execution with AI on things like that amplifies the human, because that elevates the human's ability to operate in a space that's less constrictive, I would say, or maybe, I don't know if that's what I want to use, but it's doesn't bring the value for the brain thought, for the energy they burn. You're not getting that return on that. You are whenever they're creating, when they're evaluating, when they're making decisions based on the information that comes out of what the AI can produce. So I think AI is an amazing tool. It's going to change everything that we do and how we do. We're seeing it today, and we're just scratching the surface, right? We're just scratching the surface. Where the AI is headed is so much further beyond than what the human can actually process. We think we know, and I'm sure there's really some super smart people that have a really good idea. Not this guy, but I'm sure there's some geniuses out there that have an idea of how this is going to do the how it's going to impact. So It's all about how it's used and how it's going to be controlled. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be the humans that are going to have to find a way to control the automation.
I agree, and I don't know if you probably heard of it. Is it Claude Bot? Is that what it's called? Or
Yeah.
Claude? That thing is it's like I don't know who put that in the hands of people. Like
You talking about
it should.
Mythos?
Is it Claude Bot? The one where the agent thing, where you create the agent and
Oh yeah,
it pretty much is your
yeah.
virtual assistant and it can send emails for you and can buy stuff for you. I don't know why that is out there. Like, it's like for me, that's like a fraudster's dream right there.
Mhm.
Like, having these agents
Yes.
doing stuff for him. But yeah,
Absolutely, because you create an opportunity to,
huh.
to 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 be taken advantage of if you don't step into it with the right perspective,
Yeah,
and that's what's scary,
yeah,
right? It's different. A professional's been doing this for 35 years, utilizing AI, that understands how does things
yeah,
actually work under the hood. Where do the hoses hook and where do the clamps go? We know all that stuff. But somebody that doesn't understand that just goes in it with just I'm going to do everything. That's where it gets dangerous.
yeah.
But that's where the culture comes into play, because in businesses we have people that come to work, and we have that kind of controlled environment where we can drive education and awareness and all that. Where that falls apart is, well, what if you don't work for a company that does that?
Yeah.
Where do you get your information? How do you make sure you're secure? That's where community comes into play,
Mm.
and that's a whole new conversation.
It brings me to something I was thinking like where does your job stop when you work with clients? Do you like create like sort of some kind of a plan for them, and then how do you not maybe enforce is not the right word, but how do you make sure that they're actually following? Do you actually stick with them to make sure that they follow the plan, or do you just hand it to them and be like, yeah, my job is done?
Right. So hey, that's another one. That's a great question. So it's a depends.
Oh,
So the let's first do it with where we stay sticky.
okay.
Right. So we give the plan, but in the very beginning, when we're going through that process, when I was talking about that interview process and really getting
Mm,
to know the business, I have contracts that I have that CEO and CFO sign saying, we're going to do this. We're going to support. We're going to challenge it. I mean, I put the right legal language in the contract, but essentially, it's a contract between two companies saying we're going to work in best effort and with the best intentions in mind to work forward. Now, in those organizations where it's where we stay sticky, is we build KPIs against that so we can
mm,
show at all times where are we. Are we starting to deviate? Or then we can
mm,
refocus on that very very quickly.
okay.
And some of the other opportunities where they just want the program, they just
Mm,
want, what can you do? That is one that we would deliver and say, okay, we're good. If you need support for this, if you need someone that can actually care and feed for this, we're here for you. And we
mm,
do that on a retainer basis, those types of things. Um, uh, but otherwise, we stay sticky. What I consider the best possible outcome, between Protego Cybersecurity and my client is that we help them get through that mid phase, that mid cap phase, and get them ready for the enterprise for when they're ready to hire a CISO, when they're ready to
mm,
bring somebody on to be full time, on the hook, fully W-2 employee. That's a success story. We got them
mm,
to that they could then be mature enough to bring in a CISO to be able to now care and feed for this. That is a success story.
mm.
My expectation is not that we're going to have clients and we're going to have them for the next 20 years. It'd be amazing, but that's not what I plan for. Right?
Okay.
I plan for, let's get them to a point, because we want to stay in that fractional space. I don't I don't want to start being a recruiter for organizations, but I want to solve problems,
Yeah.
and then we want to fade back in the background, because once we solve those problems, the problems just become, they disappear because they become part of the integrated part of the way they work,
Mm,
right? And that's where the depends happens.
mm.
So let me
Yeah,
answer that
that may
question.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and it makes your a title or role as a fractional CISO, like you said, it makes it even more clearer for me. When you also work with clients, do you actually recommend tools for them to use, or do you help them implement that, or what does that look like?
Right, great question. That's a great question,
Yeah.
and so yes, we do. Here's how I do it though. Um, I being in this space for 35 years, I know who's good and I know who's not.
But
I know who's emerging and I know who's got chance. I know who's emerging just to get bought out by one of these bigger guys. I get the landscape. I've been there forever.
Mm.
We know who's good and we know who's not. And we advise when we get to that point when we start talking about the technology and say, okay, what is the right technology for your organization? I will bring those partners, and I call them partners. I will bring those partners to the table. And the way that we do this is that we will help manage those partners for the company on their behalf to do the execution of the technology that needs to be done. So we can run their projects, we can manage their KPIs, we can do all those types of things. But absolutely, we do bring in technology. Now, it's not Protego's technology. It may be some big box name that is the right fit for that organization. And then they work it out. It's on their paper. They're directly connected, and then we stay as an observer. We make sure, are we good? We, also, I call our CISOs Sherpas.
Mm.
We help carry that load, but we don't do the climb for you. We do the climb with you. And so that includes everything, even the technology advisory.
Brilliant, David. This has been an awesome test. It's really good learning your side of the world, and I can see how very important what you do is, because especially for the smaller companies that can't afford to hire like a full-time CISO, so you could help them get to that point, help them grow with them basically to get to that point. Makes very wonderful sense. David, this has been a wonderful chat. You've really given us some really good insight into the world of cybersecurity and the world of Protego, and your background as in the cyber world. As we wrap up, I always like to leave our guests with our guest. I always like to leave our audience with one final tip. If you could share one final cybersecurity tip, if there's one tip a founder listening to this could go and do and achieve some kind of a quick win, what would that be?
So my tip to founders and CEOs is understand that the way that we have managed security in companies is evolving, and you have to go with that evolution. If you continue to try to do the same thing and expect it to be successful in the future in the cyberspace, you're headed to a wall. I make the subtle joke that the companies that change the mindset are the companies that are going to survive and thrive in the future, especially in the AI space. Those that continue to over-index on technology and just hope for the best, those will be the companies that the hackers will feed and feast on. It's only an industry, the cyber crime industry, and it is its own industry, is only growing. And they're getting more and more enabled. So it's time for the human to say, enough. Stop over-indexing on your technology. Let's build a cyber security mindset. Just like you build a marketing team, a sales team, an operations team, security can be just as important, and you don't have to have a security team of 50 to support it. It doesn't require that at all. It doesn't. It just it requires a change in the mindset and perspective.
I love it. What a powerful way to wrap up. If any of our viewers is watching this and would like to learn more about Protego, you, or even work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Right. So I'm on LinkedIn, both for myself individually and Protego Cybersecurity. And also we have ProtegoCybersecurity.com. So one thing about my website is I'm redoing it all. As you learn things, you say, okay, this could be done better. So I'm in the process of redoing my website.
Yeah.
But those are two great ways to get information and to get in contact with us.
Yeah.
And also, if there's any other leaders that may be listening to this that may also have their podcasts as well, be happy to have a conversation, talk this through as well. And if there's anything I can do to help level them up, let's find a way to work together.
Brilliant. David, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been, I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Greatly appreciate it as well. And